dangerous sport in the Summer Olympics. And despite what you might have thought would have been the outcome of that, the most dangerous sport is in fact equestrian eventing. So what exactly is 3-day eventing? 3-day eventing, according to Rolex Kentucky 3-day event, is the ultimate test of horse and rider. And the United States Eventing Association tells us that it is considered an equestrian triathlon developed from the test of ideal military character in a military horse. So it spans over 3 days, thus 3-day eventing, and it consists of 3 distinct phases. The first phase occurring on the first day, which would be dressage. And the dressage comes from the French term meaning training. So they wanted to see well-trained, obedient horses that are able to, march into battle and be very strict and not stray from what was going on, what was happening. So they're asked to perform very intricate movements on the flat, as shown in this picture here. It almost could be compared to like horses dancing. If you've ever seen that, it looks very similar. The second phase is then cross country, which is it's the second day because it's meant to show endurance of the horse. So they go over long distances of rough terrain, jumping over solid obstacles of many different natures, not just solid, but down, through water, anything really that you could throw at a horse is probably during cross country. And so that's really tiring on a horse to really show their endurance. And then the third phase occurs on the third day, and that's stadium jumping. And that's bringing all of the horses back into the arena on the last day to show that, first of all, they're not incapable after cross country, that they still have the stamina and the endurance, and they still have the accuracy because, as shown in the picture here, horses can knock down these poles on the third day, so that is kind of to show that they're accurate, that they're still alert and aware of what's going on around them. So what actually makes 3-day eventing so dangerous? It's actually the cross-country phase that makes it so dangerous. And Eventing Nation and virtual eventing coach Leslie Stevenson did an article on this, and they said the biggest problem with cross-country is rotational falls. So as shown in this picture here, a rotational fall is when the horse can't get 1 or 2 legs out of the way of an obstacle, and then they rotationally go forward and the rider comes forward as well. And they see the biggest problem with this in ascending jumps. So a jump that is square and doesn't go, the back of the jump is not higher than the front of the jump. It's a very square profile. And they see the biggest problem with these jumps, and it's becoming a real issue in the eventing world as well. So they say it's super unforgiving, and the best way that they're looking to avoid this, they say that rounded tops on the jumps, as you can see in this picture right here, it's kind of a little more rounded. It looks a little bit more forgiving for the horse, and that's a really good way. It's how they help to get rid of those rotational falls. It makes a big difference. So one of the applied animal science behavior, they actually did a study on this, and they compared different jumps to actually how horses would react to different types of jumps because there's so many different variations out on course. This is just a few kinds of jumps that they compared. They compared things like single jumps to jumps that are in a combination of 3, 4, 5 jumps in a row. They compared vertical jumps, so jumps that are narrow, to jumps that had a spread, and horses were jumping 3, 4, 5 feet in spread across, to narrow jumps, wide jumps, jumps that had brush on the top of them, or something like these, jumps that are in water, so you're actually asking the horse to go through water and then still jump, or asking horses to jump off banks, which would be this picture here, which you're basically asking the horse to jump off a cliff. So they actually played a lot of psychological factors into that to show how the horses would react and how that could create a danger as well. Found that super interesting to kind of think of it from a different perspective and to show how much of a danger it can be just because of how the horse sees things versus how the rider sees them. So what precautions are actually being taken to make cross-country safer? There's been a lot of precautions that have been put in place, especially in the past few years, to kind of make cross-country a safer and more fun sport for everybody. The biggest things they've regulated are helmet regulations, so helmets have to meet certain standards in the event of a fall that they would be sufficient to protect a rider. Safety vests are also being implemented a lot more. Riders have always worn these traditional vests, as shown in the picture here, just showing padding to kind of protect them in the event of a fall. And they've actually moved towards as well doing air vests. So they would wear an air vest, practically an airbag, over this vest that attaches to the saddle. And in the event of a fall, the cord that's attached to the rider and to the saddle would disconnect, and the entire airbag would blow up around the rider to protect them in the case that they came off and the horse came down on top of them. So that's been very popular now. As well as proper boots for the horse. They'll put boots on the horse's front and even hind legs to kind of protect them. So in the event that they do hit a jump with their front legs, it's a little bit easier to kind of glide over the top of it and to not really just go into the jump. So those have been like rider safety regulations, and then I think the biggest thing that's really happened in the past year or two has been frangible pins. And those are these pins right here that are under the jump. And what would happen is, in the event that a horse did hit the fence hard enough, this pin would allow the jump to actually come down so that the horse doesn't topple over the top of the jump or into the jump or anything like that. The jump would be able to collapse and the horse could come down safely as well as the rider. So, in conclusion, a big thing was just making the sport safer, because everybody wants to enjoy it, everybody wants to have fun, and that's such a big thing. So, in the end of her article, my virtual eventing coach, Leslie Stevenson, also told us, she said that there was 5 things that needed to be done to make the sport safer for everyone and to still make it an enjoyable experience, because it should be an enjoyable experience. And she had one thing that really stood out to me and really kind of hit home with me. And she said, even at the highest levels, the cross-country courses should be able to test in a way that they do not demean the horse's spirit, causing them to turn from a proud cross-country machine into an obedient robot. And that really kind of stuck with me, because cross-country is probably the funnest thing I have ever done, and the horse's heart is always 100% in it, and we're not ever looking to demean that. We want to enhance that, because when the horse is having fun, it's absolutely the biggest adrenaline rush you can ever have. So I think that it's super important that we keep the sport safe for the fun of everyone. That's it.
Okay. How did it go for you, Katie?
I mean, all right. I'm kind of dying today. So I tried to not squeak, because that happens when I lose my voice. Believe it or not, this is not the first time I've had to give a speech with my voice. But other than that, I think it went pretty well. I think I was able to roll with it a little bit. So,
Teammates, if you could, please.
As far as content goes, you always, I feel like, have such knowledge behind your topics. I think you chose them really wisely, because you obviously everything really well. For delivery, I thought this was the best conversational speech that you've had. You didn't make you weren't constantly looking down at your notes or anything like that. The one thing I would say though is you seem to focus on that side of the room and to make a lot of eye contact with this side. But other than that,
I like how you structured it, where it is you showed your interest in it, and it kind of brings back to safety, which is what you talk about, and then back to it's all about keeping the horse safe, so you're safe too, and you enjoy it. So I really it. But and then I believe your visual really helped you with instruction